If you were sitting around a table with people and you were talking about relationships, I wonder what those conversations would look like, what they would feel like, what would be said in them. Would they be exciting and storytelling, full of laughter and fun and teasing? Or would they sound a little frustrating, maybe some stress? Maybe they were full of complaints, anger, blame, maybe even hopelessness or doom. Would you be asking questions like, why do relationships feel so frustrating? Why does it seem like no matter what some people do, love and relationships feel harder than they should be? The truth is, relationships aren't broken, but the way that we approach them, now that needs to evolve. We weren't given a roadmap for how to do this. We inherited confusion, mismatched expectations, false beliefs, all of that woven into all of the fears and triggers that we carry. But what if love isn't as complicated as we've been led to believe? What if there are clear, learnable skills that completely shift how you experience relationships? And that's what we're uncovering today. Welcome to Relationship Evolutions, Bridging the Divide. I am Kelly, and this podcast is about leveling up the way that we experience love and connection, not by guessing, not by hoping, but by understanding the psychology and skill sets that create lasting relationships. Because love doesn't happen by accident, it happens by design. And most people, they don't struggle in relationships because they're unlovable. They struggle because they were never taught how to succeed. And if you've ever felt frustrated in love, it's not because something is wrong with you. It's because you were never given the tools to understand yourself, your emotions, or even your partner. But the good news is that changes today. In this episode, we're going to be breaking down the real reasons relationships are feeling harder than ever to some people. It goes from the blind leading the blind, the entitlement trap, and the false contagion that's around us. We have a lot to cover, and we're exposing the unseen patterns that sabotage connection and showing you what it actually takes to create a relationship that thrives. Now, let's get into it. Now, before we get started in the deep thing, I do want to call out this first because I know relationships are complex. We are all doing the very best that we can, and we're just trying to figure it out as we go. We want to be loved and we want to love, and we're doing everything that we can with what we know right now, and that's totally okay. We have the best intentions, and we just want to figure out how we need to connect, how we need to be supported, how to feel peaceful, and just, like I said, love and feel loved. But when this stuff is taught by people that may not have really understand themselves and what they were seeing, yes, they were doing the best that they could, but ultimately they did teach us valuable things, but also they taught us a lot of limiting things that weren't really helpful. Being passed down and passed around. And this is where one of the first biggest struggles is that we really need to be aware of is the blind leading the blind. This is a hidden reasons why relationships are struggling is because of what has been passed down to us. And the real issue here is that love isn't failing. It's that most people were never taught how to make it work by people that made it work. Relationships are skill-based, and if you don't have the right skills, no amount of love is going to make up for it. Eventually, it can crumble and it will fail. Now, it doesn't mean in the middle of this that you don't develop those skills. You don't have to have these skills all at one time to be successful. Many people do learn along the way, and that's totally okay. And you should be learning along the way. Healthy relationships, they don't avoid struggle. They don't avoid problems. They just handle it way, way differently. What is the difference? They come together as a united team because they don't let the main struggles that plague everyone else bother them. They have leveled up past those things. And one of those things is the blind leading the blind. We were taught by so many people around us that, how love works. And many times we were looking at people very near to us. We were taught about love by people who struggled themselves, our parents, media, peers, right? They passed down their own fears, their own misunderstandings, their own unhealed wounds. And because of that, they never learned how relationships actually worked. They were just gathering proof that love is hard through their pain. The things that they're passing down may not be accurate, because their emotions are guiding those translations, not their cognitive, logistical higher brain, more their emotional brain. And when we're in our emotions, we are not thinking clearly. But then those emotional triggers are what actually gets passed down to other people. And so we start getting this translation that love is just hard. The problem is that we were never taught how to approach it correctly. That's what we need to change. And so we need to break out of the blind leading the blind. We need to recognize, okay, I'm having troubles in my relationship. Where did I learn this belief? Where did I learn this translation? What if I could be wrong here? What if I could be seeing this differently? That's the first thing I want you to be looking at and asking yourself. Who taught me this? And are they a worthy authority on the subject? Right? The second thing is something I call the entitlement trap. You know, here's a truth that could be a little difficult to hear, but relationships really are conditional, and they should be, right? Love isn't something that you just receive. It's something that you build, it's something that you nurture, and it's something that you earn every single day. Now, that's not to say that you can't just receive love from someone. That is not what I'm saying. But whenever we are in a relationship and we are establishing a commitment with someone, people get into this entitlement trap of, well, you're committed to me. People don't consciously think this, but what will happen is people will start getting a little slack on showing up in the relationship. They stop showing up with respect. They stop doing all the things that they care. They stop chasing their partner and they stop adding value into it little by little. Chips away, it chips away, it chips away. And too many people believe that once a relationship is established and that commitment is made, that that commitment is permanent. And that's a mistake. See, relationships actually thrive when the two people show up with effort. They continue to give value into the relationship, and it's not the value that you think. The relationship will continue to thrive when people continue to show up with respect and consistency, right? And whenever there is a mistake and things need to be adjusted, an adaptation to behavior is actually made, not just an apology and a repetitive behavior that doesn't support the relationship. The moment you stop earning your partner's trust, admiration, and connection, things will start to deteriorate. And until you are recognizing and you have the skill sets to recognize that this stuff is happening, it's going to happen. It's going to fall apart before you even know it. I have had so many people, this came out of left field. I didn't see this happening. I didn't have any idea that this was going to come. And then they got divorced, they got broken up with. We learn to trust in things that aren't true because we are blind to all of the signs, or we have rationalized that this isn't real because we've been taught so many wrong things. You know, earning love is not about playing games. Like I know people they say that a lot now. I don't want to play this game. I don't want to play this game. It's not about playing games. It's about understanding the way human emotions and psychology actually work. And sometimes that is a silly thing. There are lots of little behavior things that happen, and we just have to recognize and accept that this is part of humanity. And so it can kind of actually be fun that in that way. But if you don't understand the natural emotional cycles that people go through, you are going to constantly feel lost, constantly feel frustrated and unsure of what's happening in your relationship. I was blindsided whenever I had a really long-term relationship and I thought I was going to be in that relationship the rest of my life. And when it ended, I I wasn't surprised in the ending of it because it was deteriorating and deteriorating and deteriorating. But at the same time, I was completely shocked because I didn't think that that was ever actually going to happen to me, right? And I was absolutely blind to it. All of the signs were there and they'd been there. But because I didn't have the skills, I didn't understand what it needed to happen. I wasn't able to intervene in a healthy way to add value into that relationship in the way that it needed to have a value added to it. And it ended. And it should have, because there was not a there was sort of an entitlement there. And I will have to always admit my own learnings through all of this stuff. You're going to hear once in a while me pop in and say something that I've learned because I am teaching this stuff from you from a place of experience. And I was the blind leading the blind. I was there. Wasn't adding value. I was taking advantage and I had the entitlement. I was codependent like crazy. And as much as I was respectful of my partner, and he was respectful of me, it was very difficult because even within that respect, it still fell apart and it still was very painful for us both, right? And whenever we are constantly feeling lost and frustrated and unsure what's happening in the relationship, and we try so hard and so many things, both sides are trying and neither one of them are connecting. Like, why is that? Most people can't even explain their own emotions, which is why we need to understand the deeper why behind human behavior. Now, I'm not saying you have to have a PhD or a psychology degree or, anything like that, be a scientist. I am a nerd. I do love the science and I will throw some sciencey stuff at you once in a while because I really dig that stuff. It is fascinating. But you don't have to be as nerdy as me about this stuff to really understand the human behavior behind the why. Totally understand all the reasons why my relationship ended, and I'm okay with it. It was good that I went through that. It was horrible. Oh my gosh. But it was good that I went through it, right? When you learn the reasons why people react the way that they do, you stop feeling powerless. Instead of reacting emotionally, you start responding strategically. You learn something and now you have a play. And there's where the games come in, but it's not really a game. We don't want to play games with people's lives. Absolutely not. But you start playing the game of chess of like, okay, let me be responsible and respond because I'm logically thinking. When we say kind of games, I'm thinking of that. Thinking this is a chessboard, not to manipulate, but to respond responsibly. Okay. And that's why coaching exists. Because when you understand how predictable patterns in human behavior can be, you stop taking things personally and you start working with them, not against them. Right? It's really cool. And when you can read a situation really clearly, you can course correct before it even becomes a real problem. My clients say this to me all the time. They'll tell me a scenario that's going on, and I will do this tool and I will tell them about this thing and I'll say, well, your partner, this thing is happening and this is what's happening with your partner. And without fail, they will say, that is exactly what they said, almost word for word. How did you do that? Well, because I understand the human behavior. I understand between the lines of what you're telling me and using this tool and what's going to probably happen. And so, because of that, they then understand that I get what's going on. So now we can coach them through it and start teaching them how to predict the patterns so that they can also start seeing how to respond better to their partners. It's a real, real amazing thing. And this is where emotional intelligence really changes the game. Because when you understand what's happening under the surface, you gain control over those responses and it changes everything. Magic really starts to happen. You start feeling really confident in what you can do in your relationships instead of feeling so lost and powerless all of the time, right? Another reason that we struggle to connect, I wanted to pop in with this, is the false contagion, is what I like to call it, of the scorned and misguided. Right now, we are in a culture where men and women, they are feeling more disconnected than ever, and it breaks my heart. Um, I come from this as well, right? Like I was very broken woman. I was very masculine woman. I had all of these horrible beliefs about women and men. And until I really healed a lot of my own stuff, I was a part of this cog. I was a part of the false contagion. I was part of the one spewing women are this and men are that and all these things. I was a part of that system. Oh my gosh. Horrible. I feel so much better that I actually see what's here now. And now I want to teach it to you as well, right? Instead of people working together, most people are locked in a circle of blame. And if you're being taught about love and relationships and how they work from someone that's speaking with blame, hurt, resentment, anger, and jealousy in their tone, you better pause and seriously consider your source because it's not that those people don't have something valuable to say. They have something valid to say. They have a reason to feel the way that they do. And I am not taking that from them. But when you really understand people on a deeper level, you recognize how focusing on the fire and the brimstone of the struggles in a relationship is not where the understanding and working through it comes from. It is much deeper than this. I call this the fireworks, and I tell my clients all the time, this is the fireworks. These are the behaviors. We are not our behaviors. We need to look at the human under the behaviors. The behaviors are a symptom of a disease. Let's go find the disease. I'm also in veterinary medicine, and I like to talk a lot about sciencey stuff in that way too. A behavior is a symptom. We need to go find the root. We need to go find what's causing the pain, right? If my dog is limping, I'm not just gonna be like, oh, he's in pain. Let's just pop a pill. No, no, no. Why is he limping? Let's fix that. Okay. If you are listening to people that are just spewing the pain, don't look at the pain, everyone. Those are fireworks. The fireworks are going to keep you locked in a place of contagion, of just scorned, misguided, he said, she said, blaming how horrible we all are. And yes, I will be the first to admit to say that humanity has a lot of messy, uncomfortable things that we are capable of. Okay, but that's not what we're going to focus on because there is some real, everyone does that. Who's going to do the harder thing and be like, hey, we actually have some really cool shit about us as human beings, and we are capable of so much amazing stuff. And when you start getting around people that start focusing on the human under the behavior, there are some amazing magical things that you can do to that human and change their life. That's what happened to me. My life completely changed when one person, my mentor, took me aside and taught me these things, treated me as a human being despite the horrible place I was in, and really helped me level up and understand this stuff. And then we teach it to the next and teach it to the next. And this is a contagion that we want to be on, right? Not the scorned and misguided, but the love, the belief in the capabilities, the possibilities. That is the contagion we need to get on board with, right? Whenever we are not understanding and working through something, we need to recognize that there's much deeper things underneath all of those blames and fiery stuff that needs some information. We don't want to get stuck into the whole generalization of men are like this and women are like that. You fill in the blank, you know what they are. I'm not even going to go through them, right? I want to let you know that men and women actually were never really meant to compete. We are so different that we are supposed to be complementary, two sides of one coin. That's my analogy, my best analogy with this. Men are heads, women are tails. And yes, you can have the pun for the joke if you'd like. I'm funny that way, I think. So you can have the pun. But yes, men heads, women tails. Okay? One coin, we have to have the other side of us. And where one is blind, because if heads is looking in one direction, it can't look behind it. It doesn't know what's on that back side of it. But guess what? She's got his back. She's there too, and vice versa. We work together. We were never meant to compete and try to be on this same side of the same coin. But that's what society is trying to do is women need to be just as good as men, or men need to be just as emotionally in tune as women. No, 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 no. Emotional intelligence, yes, but not adopting the same things that we have. Those are very different. We're going to be getting into men and women in their own environments and how beautiful and the strengths and stuff and the weaknesses or the blind spots that we have in other episodes. So stay tuned in those. We'll come to that. We're not doing that in this episode. But one of the things that I want to just highlight is that the healthiest relationships come from complementing one another, not fighting for control, not fighting for you should be more like me. But because we don't understand the other gender, this is where the relationships really struggles because we don't understand that other person as much because we're not them. Even though we think, hey, we're all human and we all have the same set of rules that we live by, eh, no, we don't. That's a rationalization. That's a belief that you probably need to throw in the garbage because it's not true. Let it go. Learn to adapt and see what's really here, right? At the core of this issue is a lack of relational skill sets. When the masculine and the feminine energies are balanced, they agree that they're on the same side, right? As far as one coin, we are a united team. We are a valuable unit together, right? A coin is a valuable piece of unit, it's a unit of value. And whenever they work together, they're balanced. It feels natural. It's effortless, right? It's deeply fulfilling. And when I started experiencing this in my life, I was hooked. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is what's missing from relationships. Oh my gosh, makes so much sense. And when you're really in flow with it, it is so delicious. It is amazing how this creates so much harmony and balance in the relationship. And when they're not balanced, when they're not in harmony, it's a battlefield. It is turbulent. It is stressful. And it's a big struggle for everyone. We're there, right? And another huge issue with this whole blame thing is instant defensiveness and closed-mindedness, right? Has this been you? When you're talking with people, even in friendships, are people listening to understand, or are they waiting to just react, or even interrupting to react? We've lost the art of curiosity of like, hey, how come you feel that way? Connection actually starts when we stop attacking and interrupting and needing to have our turn to talk. When we stop doing that and we just slow down, listen, and really ask, how come you feel that way? I'm really curious. I would love to know more. Can you please tell me? Like, this is really weird, maybe, but I would really love to know more about it because I think this way and I think that I might be wrong here. How mature of a person would you be if we started conversations like that instead of, no, 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 this, that. You're so stupid. No, no. We have gotten so defensive and our walls are up everywhere. And there's a reason for that. Our emotional intelligence needs to evolve, folks. Our closed-mindedness needs to open. The more we start recognizing the pain that we're in, if we start looking at where that pain is actually rooted in, you'll start recognizing what I mean. We'll go into that in further episodes, okay? So the real solution to mastering relationships, like what's the solution here? I want you to take comfort because you can take control of this. You can steer the wheel here way more than you realize. Yes, there is a lot of uncontrollable factors, and it is complex sometimes. But when we focus on those things, we feel the most afraid when it's things that we can't control, those uncontrollable things around us. That's when we feel the most helpless, the most hopeless, right? But when you turn that focus into something you can do about it, now you can make something happen. The solution here is you. Most people believe relationships are about feelings, but the truth is they're about skills, y'all. Skills. How skilled are you in these areas? In the masculine, in the feminine, understanding how those dynamics work, in communication, in apologizing, in not having, even in listening in skills. People have language, they speak the language and they think that they're good communicators, and oh my God, mm-mm, they're not, right? And then that might not sound romantic, but trust me, like skill-based love is still deeply passionate and fulfilling. It is about skills. And even more so because it's just like when you get into any relationship, you want to know that that person has got your back, that they got you, right? You don't want to be clunking around with someone that doesn't know what they're doing. Take that wherever your brain just went with it. And it's true, right? We want to make sure, I don't care if it's a mechanic or, a lover. You don't want to be clunking around with someone necessarily here that doesn't know what they're doing. Maybe the scenario will fit, but, most generally speaking, we want to be taken care of by someone that knows what they're doing. Your spouse wants that from you as well. Your partner wants that from you as well. Do you have the skill set to take care of them? That's all it is, right? Communication, emotional regulation, conflict resolution, right? These aren't just nice to have skills. They are a foundation of lasting love. Where are you at with these, right? If you ever felt like you just weren't good at relationships, you weren't just given the tools, right? It's just that's all it was. It doesn't mean that you can't learn them. You can learn them at any age. I was in my mid 30s when this happened to me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, my life's over. In my 30s, come on. My life is just starting. And holy shit, am I so glad that it happened. It was horrible and it was the best thing that ever happened to me. And that is another thing is looking at our past, that contagion of like, this hurt me before, so everything is going to be painted red. Man, that was the beginning of the rest of my life. That was the best thing that ever happened to me, and it was horrible. And I am so grateful for what I learned from it. And I have no animosity or anything from it. When you can look at your past that hurt you horribly, like that, like this was the best thing that ever happened to me. You are learning how to actually process emotions well, how to overcome trauma healthy, and how to use it to empower your life. And the moment that you shift from, I'm just bad at relationships, to, I can develop the skills to build great ones, you take back control of your love life. So that's it for today's episode. In the next coming episodes, we're going to be breaking down one of the biggest myths about attraction, and that's confidence. It's one of my favorite topics. Actually, I'm going to say that a lot, so don't quote me, or you can, but I will say this is one of my favorite things. Honestly, I just love it all, but confidence is something that is so, 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 so key. And people think that confidence is about looks or charisma, but they are dead wrong. Okay. I'll show you what that actually means and what makes somebody actually magnetic and irresistible in the coming episode. Okay. But for now, what I want to go and close with is, relationships, they're not failing because love is dead. Okay. They're failing because no one has the blueprints, no one's using the tools. Everyone's just like rolling around in trauma and blame and labels. And we're using the fireworks to teach us. And if we're trying to learn off of behaviors that are really not the greatest examples of humanity, that's not going to be how we succeed. Right? But that blueprint does exist on how to succeed. And the moment you choose to learn it, everything changes. So if this episode gave you something to think about, I want you to hit follow. And you can also, if you want, to check out my private community on Facebook. You can find us at Evolution's Relationship Group. You need to have good, productive conversations in there that aren't full of blame and resentment and the toxic stuff everywhere. Sorry, I'm not there for those kind of clicks. That's not me. We're not going to disrespect. We're going to acknowledge that, yeah, we're messy people and we do things that probably we shouldn't do, but we're going to learn about it and we're going to level up. We're going to do that through respect and compassion. So if you're interested in that, come and join us. And if you're really serious about transforming your life, I want you to reach out to me directly at kelly@levelupyourlow.org. And that's Kelly with an I, not with a Y. I'd love to hear from you. So for the rest, if you're just getting started, in the next episode, we are going to be diving into that myth of confidence. Don't miss it. Let's take that on and get to work. See you guys.